Section 15 of the Mabinogion, Volume 1, translated by Lady Charlotte Guest. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. Section 15. And Arthur and Owain marvelled at the tumult, as they played at chess. And looking, they perceived a knight upon a dun-coloured horse, coming towards them. And marvellous was the hue of the dun horse. Bright red was his right shoulder, and from the top of his legs to the centre of his hoof was bright yellow. Both the knight and his horse were fully equipped with heavy foreign armour. The clothing of the horse, from the front opening upwards, was of bright red sendal, and from thence opening downwards was of bright yellow sendal. A large gold-hilted, one-edged sword had the youth upon his thigh, in a scabbard of light blue, and tipped with Spanish laton. The belt of the sword was of dark green leather, with golden slides, and a clasp of ivory upon it, and a buckle of jet black upon the clasp. A helmet of gold was on the head of the knight, set with precious stones of great virtue, and at the top of the helmet was the image of a flame-coloured leopard, with two ruby-red stones in its head, so that it was astounding for a warrior, however stout his heart, to look at the face of the leopard, much more at the face of the knight. He had in his hand a blue shafted lance, but from the haft to the point it was stained crimson red with the blood of the ravens and their plumage. The knight came to the place where Arthur and Owain were seated at chess. And they perceived that he was harassed, and vexed, and weary, as he came towards them. And the youth saluted Arthur, and told him that the ravens of Owain were slaying his young men and attendants. And Arthur looked at Owain, and said, "Forbid thy ravens." "Lord," answered Owain, "play thy game." And they played. And the knight returned back towards the strife, and the ravens were not forbade any more than before. And when they had played a while, they heard a mighty tumult, and a wailing of men, and a croaking of ravens, as they carried the men in their strength into the air, and tearing them betwixt them, let them fall piecemeal to the earth. And during the tumult they saw a knight coming towards them on a light grey horse, and the left foreleg of the horse was jet black to the centre of his hoof, and the knight and the horse were fully accoutred with huge heavy blue armour. And a robe of honour of yellow diapered satin was upon the knight, and the borders of the robe were blue. And the housings of the horse were jet black, with borders of bright yellow. And on the thigh of the youth was a sword, long and three-edged, and heavy. And the scabbard was of red cut leather, and the belt of new red deerskin, having upon it many golden slides, and a buckle of the bone of the sea-horse, the tongue of which was jet black. A golden helmet was upon the head of the knight, wherein were set sapphire stones of great virtue. And at the top of the helmet was the figure of a flame-coloured lion, with a fiery red tongue issuing above a foot from his mouth, with venomous eyes, crimson red, in his head. And the knight came, bearing in his hand a thick ashen lance, the head whereof, which had been newly steeped in blood, was overlaid with silver. And the youth saluted the emperor. "Lord," said he, "carest thou not for the slaying of thy pages, and thy young men, and the sons of the nobles of the island of Britain, whereby it will be difficult to defend this island from henceforward for ever?" "Owain," said Arthur, "forbid thy Ravens." "Play this game, lord," said Owain. So they finished the game, and began another, and as they were finishing that game, lo, they heard a great tumult, and a clamour of armed men, and a croaking of ravens, and a flapping of wings in the air, as they flung down the armour entire to the ground, and the men and the horses piecemeal. Then they saw coming a knight on a lofty headed piebald horse, and the left shoulder of the horse was of bright red, and its right leg from the chest to the hollow of the hoof was pure white, and the knight and the horse were equipped with arms of speckled yellow, variegated with Spanish laton. And there was a robe of honour upon him, and upon his horse, divided in two parts, white and black, and the borders of the robe of honour were of golden purple. And above the robe he wore a sword, three-edged and bright, with a golden hilt. And the belt of the sword was of yellow gold work, having a clasp upon it of the eyelid of a black sea-horse, and a tongue of yellow gold to the clasp. Upon the head of the knight was a bright helmet of yellow laton, with sparkling stones of crystal in it, and at the crest of the helmet was the figure of a griffin, with a stone of many virtues in its head. And he had an ashen spear in his hand, with a round shaft, coloured with azure blue. And the head of the spear was newly stained with blood, and was overlaid with fine silver. Wrathfully came the knight to the place where Arthur was, and he told him that the ravens had slain his household, and the sons of the chief men of this island, and he besought him to cause Owain to forbid his ravens. And Arthur besought Owain to forbid them. Then Arthur took the golden chessmen that were upon the board, and crushed them until they became as dust. Then Owain ordered Gwres the son of Heged to lower his banner. So it was lowered, and all was peace. Then Rhonabwy enquired of Iddawc, who were the first three men that came to Owain, to tell him his ravens were being slain. Said Iddawc, they were men who grieved that Owain should suffer loss, his fellow chieftains and companions, Selif the son of Cynan Garwyn of Powys, and Gwgawn Gledd y Vrith, and Gwres the son of Heged, he who bears the banner in the day of battle and strife. Who, said Rhonabwy, were the last three men who came to Arthur, and told him that the ravens were slaughtering his men? The best of men, said Iddawc, and the bravest, and who would grieve exceedingly that Arthur should have damage in aught. Blathaon, the son of Mawrheth, and Rhuvawn Pebyr, the son of Prince Deorddach, and Hyfaith Unllen. And with that, behold, 24 knights came from Osla Gyllell to crave a truce of Arthur for a fortnight and a month. And Arthur arose and went to take counsel. And he came to where a tall, auburn, curly-headed man was a little way off, and there he assembled his counsellors.